I'm Doug Newel, and welcome to our webinar, Building the Future Exploring AI Fundamentals for Home Builders. Let me set a goal for us for this session. I'd like to have you come away demystified of AI. There has been so much nonsense published one way or another on AI, and it's actually fairly simple. And if I can transfer that understanding to you in this session, it'll be a good thing for you, and you'll be in a better position to start extracting value from this new technology. So without further ado, let me get going here. There we go. Let me introduce myself. I'm Doug Newel. I'm a 7-time entrepreneur, and I'm the CEO of a company called Swarmalytics. Swarmalytics is using cutting-edge technologies to do better AI. But more importantly, sort of my credentials, I've been involved in artificial intelligence for 25 years, which puts me in a fairly select group. In 1998, I was doing analytics at UBS Bank in Basel, Switzerland, and I realized that the volumes of data were exceeding our abilities to analyze and find the actionable patterns. So I started exploring other technologies and came upon some AI, early stage AI, and I've been riding that ever since. So basically, my career has been riding the wave of big data. It keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper to store. And the value of finding the patterns in the data continues to grow. So I will be your host for this meeting. And by the way, two housekeeping things. One, please post any questions in the chat, and I will try to get back to you on every question you ask, either in this session or afterward. And the other thing is we had an offer associated with attendance. We will be back in touch with you in order to give you the credentials for a 1-month use of our land discovery product, which I'll be talking more about, and so forth. So here's the agenda of what I hope to accomplish in the presentation. First thing, again, an overview. What is AI? What do you need to know about it in order to talk intelligently about it and start to understand its potential for your organization? Second, AI is already here in real estate, and I'll be giving you examples of that. Third, AI's potential for builders. What are some of the applications right now? And maybe in the chat, you can toss out other ideas about how this could be employed to do a better job for builders. And then use cases, I've got a few of those to share with you. So a quotation from someone way smarter than I am. We haven't found an industry or business function that couldn't enhance its performance through applying AI. That's a common quotation from any number of people. But capturing the value of AI is a journey, and it requires taking action across multiple dimensions from talent to technology. That's the actionable statement there from the McKinsey group. It takes planning and multiple actions in order to start tapping into the value. So what is AI? Let me try to simplify it as much as possible. It's taking past history, hopefully in the form of electronic records, searching through that history for patterns, turning those patterns into equations, and then applying those equations to help us make better decisions. Okay. Again, lots of data. The reason AI is just coming on board now and not 20 years ago or 25 years ago when I started, there wasn't enough data. 25 years ago, the only people that had any interest in AI were banks doing fraud detection and things like that. There was enough data at that point. But now everybody's got tons of data, and finding the patterns in that data so that you can make equations that turn into new pieces of data, like a prediction. Is this person going to buy this house? That is useful, and more data equals more accurate predictions, and all a good thing. So then let me differentiate. There are two main forms of AI. One is generative AI, and I'm sure most or all of you have probably played with Chat GPT. Uh, you can create new things based on patterns learned from existing texts and other data that they feed into it. I'm going to be spending most of my time talking to you about the second, which is predictive artificial intelligence, which is analyzing data to make predictions or classifications. So that's what AI is. A lot of data, finding the patterns, turning the patterns into an actionable tool like an equation, and employing it. On the generative side, I just sort of opened my mind and, oh, what could I do that would be cool to show an audience? So I asked my browser to write 100 words about the Las Vegas Sphere. I was going to go to Las Vegas. I recently spoke at the home show there, and I think the Sphere is pretty cool. So, boom, in about 2 seconds, it wrote a very good paragraph about the Sphere. Then my mind must have been wandering. I spent a lot of time. One of the 7 companies I started was in Munich, and I had traveled down to Neuschwanstein, probably mispronouncing it. But in any case, I said, paint a picture of a moonlit winter night looking down on Neuschwanstein. And boom, that came up, and it picked up moonlit winter night, and it came up with sort of a Van Gogh kind of thing. And sure enough, there's the snow and things like that. Anyway, really cool stuff. I don't know how it works. And we do use it a little bit around here. But again, I'm focused on the predictive AI. So predictive AI could be looking at an image. Is this Doug Newel? I've actually shaved the beard, but yes, that's a picture of Doug Newel. More serious application, I suppose, is something like taking an X-ray and is this breast cancer? One of the things that has me excited and in fact proud to be working in the area of AI is the applications that are just going to be a boon to humanity. If you can train a machine to recognize the subtleties that differentiate breast cancer from a false positive, then that's doing just a great favor to women all over the world. So that's a capability. It is giving a doctor a tool that, as if the doctor had studied hundreds of thousands of images and learned the subtleties, and it's turned that into an equation, and there it goes. It applies the equation. This slide is perhaps the most important in the deck. And when I gave a presentation on a similar but not exact same presentation in Las Vegas, people were actually pushing each other aside so they could take a picture of this. slide. So I guess it's a pretty important one. And by the way, you will all get a copy of the presentation. Well, if you want the PowerPoint, ask for it. Otherwise, you'll be directed to a recording of the presentation. Here's what AI requires, okay? And you can apply it to your organizations and see how you fit in there. First, data. Lots and lots and lots of data. We have, let's see, here in our data center, we have about 250 terabytes, I think, a quarter of a petabyte of data. This technology loves data and searches through it. Historical data, current data, public data, proprietary data. Anything you can get, it'll go through it. And it's not only looking for the data, it's looking for interactions between data things. A non-relevant one to home building, but an example I often give is if you were predicting who is going to buy a Porsche, it's got a heavy skew towards men. It's got a heavy skew towards a certain age group. One might say a midlife crisis kind of thing. By the way, I'm not immune to that. My midlife crisis is sitting down in my garage, parked there. Anyway, but there's also so age and gender, but there's also geographic skews and so forth. So the model is building an equation that is shaping a number of curves that would fit in and score everyone as to their potential to drive a Porsche. And having built such a model, I can tell you it finds people who are like 20 and 30 times more likely than the average to buy one of those cars and as some significant value. Okay, so you need data. You need software. The algorithms, there are public algorithms and there are private ones that, for instance, we have a proprietary algorithm. But what you want is something that can discover any pattern in the data and formulate that into an equation. So that can mean sort of twisting a line so that in the case of Porsches, the probability goes up with age. And then when somebody turns about 60, 65, it goes down dramatically. So you've got this bell-shaped curve kind of thing. The software has to be able to identify that pattern and turn it into an equation so that it can be used in scoring records. Computational power. We score 100 million homes many times a month, and each of those calculations takes into account, well, now that we just increased it, it's about 8,000 variables on every house in the United States, doing trillions of calculations. Another reason AI is surfacing now and not in the year 2000, it's not that people are smarter now than in the year 2000. It's that there weren't computers that could do that kind of calculations in the year 2000. So it's requiring computational power. And then finally, and this is probably the most important of them, finally, expertise. Expertise in computer science, in statistics and math, in economics, in business, and often AI is used for marketing purposes. So you need to be able to frame the right question. If you ask AI a stupid question, it's going to give you back an answer that you may have confidence in, but it's the wrong answer. A good example, if you're trying to maximize your profitability of selling a house, but instead you tell it to maximize the revenue, you may be sitting on that house for quite a while because it's going to be holding out for the highest possible sale price when in fact you're incurring costs of maintaining that house from one month to another and so forth. So anyway, great slide. And this is your checklist of things you're going to need. Notice one thing that is not on the checklist: big bags of money. You do not need big bags of money in order to get into AI. You can leverage the work that's already been done and get in for a fraction of the price of what some others have spent. So how does it make the best prediction? It is an iterative process. It iterates over and over. It makes a prediction. It compares the prediction to a training case. It learns that it was high or it was low, and it then goes back, passes that information on, and over and over and over. So in the models we do predicting which homes are going to sell in the next 30 days or 90 days, we may build hundreds of thousands of models, each one looking at hundreds of thousands of cases. And what we're trying to do is find the commonalities across to all those, that a house that has a VA mortgage may be more likely to sell. This is with existing housing. VA house may be more likely to sell because the mortgage may be transferable, and it could be a 3% mortgage, which makes it a bargain to buy. So anyway, the entire process is one of self-improvement. We've been predicting things like I mentioned, 90-day home sales. We've been predicting which houses are going to be turned into rental property. We've been predicting which houses are going to be flipped. We've been predicting which apartment buildings are going to be sold. We've been predicting rental amounts and so forth. We predict a lot of stuff. We've been doing that for 5 years, and it keeps getting better. We keep finding new data elements to test in there, and we keep learning from the previous predictions. And again, this is each time the AI makes a prediction, it compares its overall error rate to the previous, and it replaces the scoring equation when the new equation is better than the existing. Champion challenger to the nth degree, again, employing trillions of calculations in order to do this in an automated fashion. So let's take a breath here. Turn the page. AI has come to real estate. Lennar is the second largest builder by the metrics I've seen in the US, and they've been generating a bit of news in their use of AI. In particular, I like the center one here in this, the Lennar machine. They've named it. The Lennar machine, a cycle-proof growth plan proves itself. So they're announcing to the world that their AI, it works. And you got to kind of read between the lines. They're not opening up the kimono to show you everything that's going on, but it has to do with making their business cycle proof. So they are using AI to find a clearing price for houses. It may not be the highest price, but they've determined that they've got a machine, and running the machine basically at the same RPM, to mix metaphors, running it at the same RPM in the long term maximizes their share and their profitability and so forth. So anyway, we're getting a whole bunch of news about Lennar. And then Lennar, in their financial results, when they're talking to their stockholders, every time for the last 3 or 4 cycles, here we've got quotes from their Q2 2023 financial results. presented 10 months ago. We call this configuration of our dynamic processing model and digital marketing platform the Lennar machine. So they give it credit with driving new order volume, always a good thing. And then they sort of sum it up. See the Lennar machine in action, you just might start to imagine where the oft talked about AI might find its way into the sometimes stodgy home building industry and improve productivity. Sometimes stodgy, I think, is a little over the top, but clearly they're trying to position themselves to their investors as cutting edge. And in a few slides, I'm going to show you why they want to position themselves as cutting edge. So the real estate world is awash in data. In the old days, traditional data, there'd be something about the number of beds and baths and the square footage and maybe a few statistics about the neighborhood and so forth. That is a tiny fraction of what is available. And more data equals more accurate predictions, which ultimately yields more money in the bank. So potential data, climate, of course, proximity to amenities and hazards, like exactly how far is it to the nearest golf course? By the way, how far is it to the nearest toxic waste dump? What's the traffic? I got little kids. What's the traffic flow going to be? Most people like trees. What is the foliage canopy? We have that data, for example, down to I think it's 20 or 30 meters square. So on my property, I would have 20 or 30 different readings of what the canopy is looking like. Interest rates are changing all the time, as we know. I'm leaning up against Wall Street Journal from Friday. Rates top 7%, housing hit. You need pretty much daily interest rate data going into your analysis. Neighborhood characteristics, there are tons of those, and we make tons more. We have over 4,000 variables having to do with proximities. What's the proximity to the nearest theater, to the nearest barber shop, and so forth, on and on. Most of those won't enter into an equation, but together they give the predictive model a sense of the world. It's the best way it can understand. Why is this house selling so much faster than this one? Well, it could be some of the crime statistics or something like that. So another fun one is the altitude and the slope. And from the altitude and the slope, we can calculate the view. I live in the Carolinas here in the mountains, and there is about $100,000 price differential on a home with a great view versus a regular one. So knowing that, it may not come into all predictive models, but it's going to come into some, and in a big way. And of course, taxes, they vary all over the place. Let's talk about pricing a house. This is really where the rubber hits the road. Sort of most old-fashioned method, cost plus. It is certainly easy to do. You add up your materials and labor and say, hey, if I can make 20% on this house, I'm selling the house at it costs me 400,000. If I can sell it at, what's that, 480, then life will be good. Problem is, it leaves money on the table in a hot market. If people are in bidding wars and you sell that house for 480, where somebody would have gladly taken it off your hands for 520 or something, you've left a significant part of your profit on the table. Shame on you. Uh, on the flip side, if it's a cold market and the market gets a little bit colder when interest rates go up to 7%, the house is going to sit unsold in a cold market. And I suspect many of you are very aware of the costs associated with maintaining, insuring, and paying the uh, mortgage on a unsold house sitting on the market. Method two, which gets more points than the simplistic cost plus, is how about a comp? Well, comps are better. It's more advanced. It takes into consideration in an indirect way things like crime and how expensive are the other houses. And it sort of takes into account that maybe houses in California are more expensive than North Dakota and things like that. So it's pretty good. However, comps have a heavy emphasis on proximity. And if you decide to do your comps houses within 2 miles, by definition, you've left out information about that house that looks just like it, but it's 5.5 miles away and so forth. It's ignoring building material quality, and it's really based on usually beds, baths, and square footage. The new method that is coming, and I hope to be part of spreading it across the market, AI driven. Let's take into account thousands of factors, build millions of candidate solutions, figure out that a golf course 1.5 miles down the road, in fact, adds $1,500 to the value of the house or whatever. It's dynamic. Maybe you want to update the model every day if you want, because interest rates are bouncing all over the place. It's taking into consideration all possible equations, interactions, nonlinear relationships, so a whole bunch of math that I won't bore you with, but it's doing all of that. This is a possibility of the application of swarming intelligence. I mentioned before, we go and don't build a national model. We explode the nation into 56 submodels and then run those all in parallel in order to squeeze more predictive power, more accurate predictions out. And it's measurably superior to the other methods. So you're going to get a free 1-month use of the land discovery. What is this about? It's about identifying parcels of land that you may want to acquire for immediate or longer term property development. So it all starts with, again, lots and lots of data. We have gathered up thousands of pieces of information about every property and organized it and cleaned it and so forth. We split that into, here's a sample of undeveloped parcels, and here are ones that have been developed. We tell the AI, figure out what the difference is and find the undeveloped ones that look a lot like the ones that have been developed recently. It then builds millions of combinations of factors and different weights, and again, a bunch of math. It won't bore you with, nobody in a is ever going to ask you about that. But it comes out with the prediction. So you can go in and say, I want to see top 10 properties within within a radius of Asheville, North Carolina. And by the way, it's got to have a sewer pipe nearby and 100 feet of road frontage and electric and things like that. So anyway, this is a working use of AI to predict land development. And instead of spending hours in a courthouse looking through titles and crap like that, it goes and sorts through millions of pieces of property based on your specifications and comes out with listings. By the way, it is not enough to identify properties that would be great for development. We've built a second model that identifies ones that are likely to be sold. If the owner is 83 years old, the chance of that property being sold in the next 2 or 3 years is much greater than if it's a young family who have just bought a farm and they're actively working the farm and things like that. So we have a separate model for properties that are likely to be developable, attractive for development, and which ones you might actually get your hands on. Some other things. AI, again, it's a very versatile tool. You've got to put in what you want out of it and do that precisely. And then it will crunch through the numbers and build equations and apply scores that you can then treat as a new data element, like this property scores a 950 and 1,000 scale as far as being developed because it is right near previous developments and it's got this and this. And anyway, it takes all that into account. So other things besides land development. What price should this house be listed for? Notice listed for is different than what it should be sold for. That would be a different model. What audience should I market this property to? We've got a tool that sits on top of a website and basically is monitoring while maintaining privacy. It's monitoring everything going on so that if someone keeps returning to this property and looking at it from every different aspect and so forth, maybe that individual deserves greater investment in terms of marketing than the average. Big question. How long can I expect this house to stay on the market? Well, based again upon my Wall Street Journal news story from Friday, I'd say all of the estimates for how long this stays on the market probably stretch out a bit when that data element is updated. Of course, we also see which builders are subsidizing interest rates, and so that has to be factored in as well. And then how much profit can I expect from the sale of this house? That would be a good one as well. I mentioned that Lennar is bragging about being a front runner. No kidding. Here we see in this graph that, and this is from McKinsey, a pretty reputable source, we can see that it's looking at the economic gains by AI adoption, whether it's front runners, followers, or laggards. And from their simulation, it appears that almost all of the benefit of adopting AI comes if you're a front runner. So Lennar is positioning themselves, hey, watch us, all the rest of these guys, what was the term they used? Stodgy or something like that. Anyway, they want to be a front runner and recognized as a front runner and have Wall Street appreciate them as a front runner. Followers are a little bit better. Laggards actually lose here from this graphic in by the adoption of AI because they're dragged in kicking and screaming. They don't want to change their business. They just want to go on doing everything they've been doing, and the world is changing, and that is a dangerous place to be in. So that hopefully you have some idea what AI is about, squeezing patterns out of data, using those patterns to make better decisions. There are 1,000 different ways that this can be employed for builders, and even things like the listing. I can tell you from previous analyses that having the words stainless steel in your listing is a very good thing when it comes to shortening the time on market. When that analysis was done, it was probably a couple of years ago, but if you didn't have stainless steel appliances, you should probably tear out whatever you have, throw it away, and put in stainless steel because it did that much. So anyway, there are new applications all the time. I am sure that AI will soon be used in order to optimize not only the construction process itself, but perhaps the design that having it will find that having a bedroom that are these dimensions or whatever, or this many steps to the bathroom or whatever, is a more attractive home that sells better. And it will just latch on to that and continue to proliferate throughout the industry. So, got a lot of things it's going to be doing, and it all depends upon data. And by the way, if you folks have, if any of you are interested in this and have sort of a paper-based system, we are using the generative AI technology, the Chat GPT, uh, to extract from documents the key factors that may go into predictive models. So, does anyone have any questions? Um, Lucas, I cannot see questions. Could you read me any that have come up?
Sure. We've got a few of the sort of typical frequently asked questions. Again, all attendees are welcome to submit any additional questions in the chat at this time. For instance, how do I best get started with incorporating AI technology into my company?
Okay, that's a great question, and it can seem intimidating. Again, people dream about what AI may be in 10 or 20 years, and those dreams, when they express them, become incredibly intimidating, whether it's Arnold Schwarzenegger movies about robots wandering around killing people or whatever. Uh, the question is, how can better analysis of all of that data that you all generate, how can that be used to make better decisions? So one of the things we offer is a process where we put someone through we create a roadmap. And back to those four factors: the data, the processing, the algorithm, and the people. We will go in and work with you to sort of rate where your strengths and weaknesses are, and therefore be able to come back with a scope of, well, the biggest opportunity for you seems to be perhaps in home pricing because you were using the rudimentary cost plus thing, and that means you were leaving lots on the table. Here's the estimate of the quantification of what you left on the table. And therefore, we'd start there, and here's sort of the investment needed. Much of the investment is going to be in proof of concepts, which can be employed almost immediately to measure the benefit. And there may be some investment needed to clean up your data, depending. I've seen some horrible data and I've seen pristine data. So it really depends to get going. Where are you now? You know? Okay. Any other questions, Lucas?
Sure. What are the typical costs associated with incorporating AI?
Okay, that's a similar question. Well, I can tell you, I'm shooting for. I don't know for sure what Lennar has invested to get AI going. I'm shooting for offering it at something like 10 cents on the dollar of what they've invested. Um, Here's where I put my sales hat on. We here at Swarmalytics, we already have the algorithm. Thank you, all set. And we'll license it out or whatever. We already have masses of data to supplement things. What we don't have is builder data. And that's the secret ingredient. I need to know not only that this house has 3 bedrooms and 3 baths and lives in a low crime area and so forth, blah, 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 all that stuff. I need to know, what are the floors made of? They're solid walnut? Holy cow. Yeah. Okay. That changes a lot of things in the equation and so forth. So, again, it depends on the costs are going to depend upon the condition. Is your data currently stored in some electronic format, or are we talking about a file drawers full of papers, handwritten and things like that? So I guess I have to um, I have to punt on that one until I knew more about somebody's specific situation.
We've got a question from Andy here. Thank you, Andy. Uh, what's your expected revenue model, and is this subscription for end users?
Andy, if you're referring to the land discovery product, yes, we do have a subscription. Lucas, can you, I want to make sure I quote it correctly. Always dangerous to turn a CEO loose with a question like that when marketing's already decided. What's our pricing on land discovery? I know if you're buying one state or you're buying the whole country, access kind of thing.
Sure. Current pricing is, I believe, $199 a month for a single state, $499 for 3 states, or the entire United States for 1,499.
Right. Okay. And that's again, it is um it's also available on Procore's site, or it will be in the next couple of days. We're partnered up with Procore, and they're going to be offering the land discovery as well. As far as the other products like pricing of houses and so forth, uh again, that's bid upon request kind of thing. Any other questions?
What kind of return on investment should you expect from AI?
I'd expect the initial investment, and this is sort of seat of the pants estimate. I'd expect it to pay for itself in 2 to 3 years, depending, of course, on the application. The land discovery one, again, if you bought the national, what was it, like 1,500 a month or whatever, so you're talking about 18,000 a year. I've got to believe the folks that wander the countryside looking for land opportunities, fully loaded, probably cost in the 80 to $100,000 range. So if the land discovery can make them 20% more efficient by either identifying parcels that would have been missed or giving them a bigger territory or whatever, um, that should pay for itself in a matter of months.
And feel free to submit additional questions. This may be our last one. What is next with AI in the building industry?
What is next?
What is next?
Oh, I think it's going to take the building industry at least 10 to 15 years to digest AI. Again, there will be new versions of AI that squeeze a little bit more out of the data. That's what we're doing with the swarming technology. It's going to get into, we've just picked, we have like 5 products right now using AI, and we've just picked the lowest hanging fruit. It's like, wow, the sale price, that's a no-brainer. If you can have a more accurate sale price and alert management as to the optimum price or the expected price to sell this house, that's a big deal because it's a small percentage times a very big number of, $600,000 per unit you sell. So we have that, and we've got the land discovery, and we get into apartment building targeting and things like that. Um, I think it's going to get in very big time into scheduling. I believe there's an opportunity in estimating to use AI in there. That seems to be, from what I've read, a common theme, a common pain point among builders is estimating things. And again, the construction sequence and optimizing that, and then the design itself. That'll be cool. That'll be bringing in all sorts of new forms of data. People reacting. I can imagine um, watching how long different people are looking at a particular house on a website, taking that and having that fed back into, when you paint them that color yellow, people don't look at it as long, or whatever. Again, just more. It's going to be a perhaps never ending, more data, more powerful tools to squeeze the data, more applications where you start at the biggest expenses and biggest revenue opportunities, and you go down from there. So I want to thank you all for taking a little bit of time attending. And again, please feel free to make good use of the land discovery product for a month. And I hope I was successful in my goal of demystifying. There are people out there who would like to prop themselves up by wrapping mystique and, oh, this is too complicated for you to understand things around new technologies. Uh, that's nonsense. In order to get the value of this new technology, you can't be afraid of it. Nobody wants to use a black box. And if you can understand it and understand you don't need to understand the math. You need to just understand what the process is and what the key ingredients you need to bring to the table are. So thank you very much. And I hope to talk to you sometime in the future. Bye.